Thursday, October 10th, 2019, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. So, has the Federal Reserve just helped keep Deutsche Bank going? The zombie bank that we've been talking about for years that should be bust, right? It should have its bench broken and stop from dealing right. La Banca Rota. Well, there's a story out in the FT that came out 3 hours ago, and it says Federal Reserve drops toughening liquidity rules on foreign banks. Deutsche expected to benefit most from change in U.S. regulators' stance. Before I go into the story, I want to look at the Trump organization, who Trump nominated to the Federal Reserve Board in 2017. And what that has got to do with this story, and you will see as I go into the story, right? So there's an article here from December 2nd, 2017. Trump's two largest creditors, Ladder Capital Finance and Deutsche Bank. It's by Wendy Siegelman from Medium.com. Yeah, and as you can see, the Trump organization is financed by Deutsche Bank. Almost $500 million there in finance from Deutsche Bank. And then you also look at the Kushner family. The Kushner companies are financed by Deutsche Bank as well. The Kushners are related to this Ladder Capital. It doesn't matter, the Ladder Capital finance. I'm not going to look into that, but it would be interesting probably to look into it. So yeah, Deutsche Bank, the biggest creditor to the Trump organization, right? So what about this guy called Randall Quarles? Quarles. So Randall Keith Quarles is an American private equity investor and government official who has served as a member and vice chair of supervision of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors since 2017, October 2017. Previously, he was founder and head of the Sinusure Group, a private equity investment firm, and a former partner of the Carlyle Group, one of the world's largest private equity firms. So it says in July 2017, Quarles was nominated by President Donald Trump to be board member and vice chair of supervision of the Federal Reserve. The other thing he's become the chair of the Financial Stability Board at the BIS in Basel. Mark Carney was the chair of that before. So these guys regulate the too big to fail banks. So Randall Quarles actually, aside from being a board member of the Federal Reserve, he's the chairman of this BIS group. So he's actually, that's completely separate, and he regulates the too big to fail banks, right? What about the Carlyle Group? There's another interesting story. We have the story of the Carlyle Group, which of course was founded by Frank Carlucci, who was Secretary of Defense under Ronald Reagan from 87 to 89. And then he founded the Carlyle Group, of which the Bushes, George Herbert Walker Bush, even John Major have been part of, right? It doesn't get more deep state than that, right? So there's an article here from Global Research about how George Herbert Walker Bush was meeting none other than Shafiq bin Laden, the brother of the alleged terror mastermind Osama bin Laden, right? They're meeting at the New York Ritz-Carlton, the business encounter under the auspices of the Carlyle Group, right? So there you go. Just wanted to put that out there. So let's look at the story. So it's just come out 3 hours ago. So yeah, Federal Reserve drops toughening liquidity rules on foreign banks. Deutsche expected to benefit most from change in U.S. regulators' stance. We'll go through the article here. U.S. banking regulators have dropped a proposal to subject local branches of foreign banks to tough new liquidity rules in a move which will benefit the troubled Deutsche Bank more than any other. The Federal Reserve will announce on Thursday that it has decided against forcing U.S. branches of foreign banks to hold a minimum level of liquid assets to protect them from a cash crunch, according to people familiar with the decision. So, yeah, we hear that Donald Trump is fighting the Fed, right? He wants to bring down the Fed. Is it really? Okay, anyway, let's continue. They added that such rules are likely to be proposed in the coming month by international regulators instead. Well, that's by actually Randall Quarles, who is a member of the board of the Federal Reserve, but they call him an international regulator. I highly recommend you watch Best Evidence by John Titus. He talks all about that, how these central bankers, they pose as Federal Reserve board members, but at the same time as international regulators. So that's the guy that Trump nominated, right? So the Fed's decision on branches liquidity requirements is part of a package of measures designed to shape up how international banks, read too big to fail banks, are regulated in the U.S., the latest in a series of steps under the Trump administration to rewrite the rules put in place after the financial crash. Foreign banks do most of their U.S. business through intermediary holding companies, or IHCs. Yeah, right. Which are subject to extensive regulation and stress testing. Germany's Deutsche Bank, which is scaling back its Wall Street business as it tries to stem spiraling losses, has the most to gain from the concessions since it has the biggest branching presence of any foreign lender with assets of 175 billion in its main U.S. branch. Here comes the interesting part. When Randall Quarles, the vice chair for banking supervision at the Fed, announced his original plans early this year, foreign banks broadly welcomed the attempt to review existing rules. Well, it doesn't say here that he's also the chairman of the Financial Stability Board at the BIS, right? So he does both things. The video you need to watch from John Titus is All the Plenaries Men. He talks about how these guys pose as officers of the Fed and the BIS, right? Though protested against any additional scrutiny of their branches. Of course, they're not going to do it, scrutinies. People familiar with his thinking, says Mr. Quarles, accepts the bank's argument that any liquidity rules on bank branches should only be imposed in conjunction with foreign regulators. Well, with himself and the BIS. Some officials are concerned that another cash crunch could prompt other countries to try to seize the assets. How can you seize assets of your own bank? You can't. You just transfer it, right? Of U.S. bank branches located there. And so want an agreement among members of the International Financial Stability Board, right? My goodness. It doesn't even mention here, I don't think, that Mr. Quarles, I don't know how you pronounce that name, is actually the chairman of the Financial Stability Board, and that it was Donald Trump indirectly who nominated him to that post, because he nominated him to the board of the Federal Reserve, right, in 2017. So here's the chart. Look how Deutsche Bank benefits. The Japanese banks benefit a lot as well. French bank as well, SocGen. So there you go. Deutsche Bank, in my opinion, has kind of been given a reprieve by the Federal Reserve, by the BIS, indirectly by President Trump, and Trump Organization benefits from that, right? Deutsche Bank is its biggest creditor. Maybe that's why Deutsche Bank is still going, right? So let's look at the markets now. It's just before 8:30 a.m. London. Interesting story came out last night London time. This was at like 11:36 London, 6:36 p.m. New York time. Stock futures slide on Chinese report of stalled talks. So this is from the South China Morning Post. This is from Seeking Alpha. It says that the South China Morning Post is pointing to the fact that Chinese trade negotiators, they're starting their talks today in the U.S., and they're going to only be here be in the U.S., and that they're only going to be in the U.S. for a day, and they're going to leave, right? So the stock market actually dropped over 300 points last night. The Dow. Gold went up to 15, 17. Silver almost went up to 18. All that loss now has been kind of pared back. We're only down about 40 right now in the Dow. We're down 3 in the S&P. Gold is back down. It's at 1508. Silver is at 1773. But I don't think it bodes well. We'll have to see what happens today. It's going to be an important day in terms of the markets and this trade dispute, because they're going to be meeting today in the U.S. U.S. negotiators, Treasury Secretary Mnuchin leading that, and the Vice, I think, President from China, right? They're going to meet just today. The Chinese are not going to stay any longer. It looks like they're just going to stay a day, right? But and some people are saying that they're staying a day and negotiating today just to go through the motions, and they're actually pointing that they're actually not very happy with what's going on. So we'll have to wait and see. So what about the rest of the markets? Well, currency-wise, sterling is a little stronger. We're at 122.38, up 0.25%. The euro is a little stronger as well, up 0.4 at 110.15. Chinese currency is a little stronger, so the dollar is down 0.33% at 711.69. Crude oil, 52.38, the WTI. Brent, 57.92. They're down about 0.5%. What about Deutsche Bank? Well, Deutsche Bank is not doing much this morning. It's unchanged at €6.30 or thereabouts. Bond markets are fairly quiet this morning as well. The 10-year yield actually is down 1.5 basis points at 157. 2 years at 145, down about 3. So there you go. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share it far and wide. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, think about subscribing. You can also follow me on Twitter, Steemit, and on DTube. I wish you all a great day. Take care. Bye.